Washington, D.C. looks powerful during the day. Politicians moving through marble halls, tourists taking photographs beside monuments, American flags rising above the National Mall beneath blue skies. But beneath the symbols of democracy, another story has quietly existed for centuries. A story involving hidden ceremonies, coded symbols, blood oaths, and some of the most powerful men in American history: presidents, generals, bankers, founding fathers. For more than 200 years, rumors surrounding the Freemasons have survived beneath the surface of American society. Some people describe them as nothing more than a private brotherhood built around networking and tradition. Others believe the organization became one of the most influential hidden societies in modern history. The suspicion only deepened because the symbols seemed impossible to ignore once people noticed them. The all-seeing eye, the unfinished pyramid, the square and compass, massive stone temples, geometric street alignments hidden inside Washington, D.C. itself. Entire books were written trying to decode what people believed was hidden in plain sight. Then came the question that changed everything. Why were so many of America's founding fathers Freemasons? George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Paul Revere. Nearly half of Washington's generals reportedly belonged to the Brotherhood during the Revolutionary War. Even today, researchers still debate whether Freemasonry simply reflected elite culture during the Enlightenment period, or whether something much larger operated quietly behind the scenes while the United States was being built. The mystery intensified because Freemasonry openly embraced secrecy, ritual handshakes, passwords, closed-door initiations. For centuries, members swore oaths never to reveal what happened inside lodge meetings. Some ceremonies reportedly involved blindfolds, swords pointed at initiates, symbolic death rituals, and warnings about betrayal. To critics, this looked less like harmless tradition and more like a hidden power structure operating beneath society itself. Then people started asking another uncomfortable question. If Freemasonry truly was only a fraternity, why did so many politicians, military leaders, judges, and wealthy businessmen continue joining it generation after generation? The deeper people investigated its rituals, symbols, political influence, and historical connections, the more unsettling the story became. Because at some point the rumors stopped sounding like internet conspiracy theories and started colliding directly with real moments in American history. One of the moments that transformed Freemasonry from a private brotherhood into something deeply controversial happened during the American Revolution itself. In the winter of 1773, anger toward Britain exploded across Boston. Taxes were rising. Protests filled the streets. Tension between the colonies and the British Crown was reaching a breaking point. Then, inside a tavern called the Green Dragon, a group known as the Sons of Liberty secretly gathered to plan what would become one of the most famous acts of rebellion in history, the Boston Tea Party. What made the story fascinating was who owned the tavern: St. Andrew's Lodge, a Freemason lodge. Paul Revere himself reportedly served as master of the lodge, while revolutionary discussions quietly unfolded inside its walls. Historians later noticed something strange in the lodge records. On the exact night of the Boston Tea Party, a scheduled Masonic meeting had supposedly been canceled because too many members failed to appear. According to legend, many of them were out dumping British tea into Boston Harbor. Suddenly, the conspiracy theories surrounding Freemasonry no longer sounded impossible. The deeper researchers looked into the Revolutionary era, the more often Masonic names appeared beside critical moments in American history. George Washington openly embraced Freemasonry throughout his life. Benjamin Franklin published one of the earliest Masonic books in America and rose quickly through the organization. Nearly one-third of the signers of the Constitution reportedly belonged to Masonic lodges. To historians, this reflected the popularity of Enlightenment-era fraternities among educated men. But to conspiracy theorists, it looked like a hidden network quietly shaping the birth of a nation from behind closed doors. Then people began examining Washington, D.C. itself. That is when the theories exploded even further. Researchers pointed toward strange geometric street alignments, circles, obelisks, and symbols woven throughout the Capitol. The Washington Monument resembled a giant Egyptian obelisk rising into the sky. The unfinished pyramid and all-seeing eye appeared directly on the Great Seal of the United States before eventually reaching the dollar bill itself. Then came one phrase that conspiracy theorists became obsessed with: Novus Ordo Seclorum, New Order of the Ages. To skeptics, it represented America's democratic experiment. To believers, it sounded like something far more ambitious. And once people started searching for hidden symbolism across America's monuments and government buildings, they suddenly believed they saw it everywhere. But the paranoia surrounding Freemasonry truly exploded after one terrifying event changed public opinion forever. In 1826, a man named William Morgan announced he planned to expose the organization's secrets inside a published book. Before the book could spread widely, Morgan disappeared. Witnesses claimed he had been arrested under suspicious circumstances before vanishing completely. His body was never conclusively identified. Newspapers exploded with outrage. Anti-Masonic protests erupted across America. Entire political careers collapsed under public pressure. Families feared hidden influence inside courts and police departments. The scandal became so massive that the United States eventually formed an anti-Masonic political party dedicated entirely to opposing the Brotherhood's power. Suddenly, Freemasonry no longer looked mysterious. To many Americans, it looked untouchable. But perhaps nothing fueled public fascination with Freemasonry more than the organization's secret rituals themselves. Stories surrounding the initiation sounded less like ordinary fraternity ceremonies and more like scenes from an underground society hidden beneath civilization. One of the most famous examples involved George Washington's own initiation in 1752. According to historical descriptions, the young Washington entered the lodge blindfolded before being guided toward a locked door. He knocked 3 times. The door slowly opened. Then, a sharp object was reportedly pressed directly against his chest, while men surrounded him in complete silence. Only after swearing an oath of secrecy was the blindfold removed. When Washington opened his eyes, swords were allegedly pointed directly toward him, as a warning never to betray the organization's secrets. The imagery alone terrified outsiders for generations. Even modern Freemason rituals reportedly still involve passwords, ceremonial grips, symbolic tools, and traditions passed down orally for centuries. Members insist the secrecy exists simply to preserve trust and tradition between brothers. But outsiders viewed the rituals very differently, especially because many ceremonies revolve around symbolic death. One of the central Masonic reenactments tells the story of Hiram Abiff, a legendary builder connected to King Solomon's temple, who was murdered after refusing to reveal sacred secrets. During reenactments, candidates symbolically experience betrayal, death, and rebirth as part of the initiation process. To Freemasons, the ritual represents loyalty, integrity, and transformation. But critics saw something far darker. Rumors spread that Freemasonry operated through hidden inner circles,
unknown even to ordinary members themselves. Then, another controversial figure pushed public suspicion even further: Albert Pike. Few names in Freemason history generated more paranoia than Pike, a Confederate officer and Masonic philosopher whose writings became legendary within the organization. In his book, Morals and Dogma, Pike discussed ancient symbolism, Enlightenment traditions, and references to Lucifer as a light bringer. Scholars argued he was speaking philosophically, using ancient Latin meanings. But conspiracy theorists immediately exploded with accusations that Freemasonry secretly worshipped dark forces. The rumors intensified after Pike's remains were moved into the House of the Temple in Washington, D.C., one of Freemasonry's most important architecture, filled with coded architecture, sacred geometry, hidden chambers, and massive stone symbolism. Visitors walking through the building described long, silent hallways lined with statues, ceremonial rooms illuminated by dim lighting, and walls covered in cryptic imagery that looked more like scenes from an ancient order than a modern fraternity headquarters. Even the building's address allegedly reflected Masonic numerology, connected to the 33 degrees of Scottish Rite Freemasonry. To believers, the temple looked less like an ordinary gathering place and more like the command center of a hidden society operating in plain sight. And perhaps that is exactly why Freemasonry continued terrifying people generation after generation. Not because anyone could fully prove the conspiracy theories, but because the organization's secrecy left enough unanswered questions for the imagination to run wild.
Then the theories became even more extreme. Some researchers began connecting Freemasonry to another secretive organization feared throughout Europe for centuries: the Illuminati. According to historical accounts, the Illuminati was founded in 1776 by Adam Weishaupt, a German professor who wanted to spread radical ideas about reason, secularism, and freedom from authoritarian control. But because openly criticizing powerful institutions during that era could be dangerous, the organization allegedly operated in complete secrecy. Conspiracy theories later claimed the Illuminati infiltrated Masonic lodges across Europe and eventually America itself. Whether true or not, the timing terrified people. The Illuminati emerged during the exact same revolutionary period that gave birth to the United States. Suddenly, rumors spread that hidden societies were quietly shaping world events from behind the scenes. George Washington himself once wrote in a letter that he believed Illuminati doctrines had spread into the United States. For conspiracy theorists, that single statement became explosive evidence that America's first president knew far more than the public realized. The fear surrounding hidden organizations only intensified in modern times when conspiracy theories became attached to major government projects. One of the most famous examples became the Denver International Airport. Opened in 1995, the airport immediately triggered bizarre rumors after travelers noticed strange murals, underground tunnel systems, cryptic artwork, and a dedication plaque featuring Masonic imagery. One traveler described freezing in front of a massive mural showing children wearing gas masks while cities burned behind them. Others became obsessed with murals depicting war, destruction, and societal collapse spread across the airport walls. Then came another unsettling detail. A plaque inside the airport referenced the New World Airport Commission, an organization nobody could actually verify existed. Suddenly, internet forums exploded with theories claiming the airport concealed underground bunkers designed for elite survival during a future catastrophe. Others believed it would eventually become the headquarters of a future global government. Over time, Freemasonry became connected to nearly every major conspiracy theory involving global power structures. Banking dynasties, intelligence agencies, political elites, hidden financial control. Some theories even linked the Brotherhood to the ancient Knights Templar, claiming Freemasons inherited forbidden knowledge discovered beneath Solomon's Temple during the Crusades. Historians fiercely debate these claims, and much of the evidence remains speculative at best. But perhaps that uncertainty is exactly why Freemasonry continues fascinating people centuries later. Because the organization exists in the perfect space between reality and myth. Real enough to influence history, secretive enough to provoke endless suspicion, powerful enough to make people wonder what happens behind the closed doors they are never allowed to enter. Maybe the greatest power of secret societies is not what they hide, but how deeply they make the world question who is truly in control. Subscribe to Tilt and Chill and journey deeper into the world's hidden mysteries, forbidden history, and secrets buried beneath civilization itself.